Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories, shall we? The first story is called Karen Won't Sit in the Back. This happened a few years ago, roughly 4. I worked at an office about a 45-minute drive from my house. I had a friend who worked in the same office and I would give her a ride home as it was on my way. I literally had to pass by her house to go to and from work, so it was no big deal. Well, another woman who worked in my office lived really close to her and found out about the arrangement. She wanted to guilt my friend into asking me to take her as well. Since it was on my way, I said okay. At the same time, my late husband's car was in the shop, so I would make a detour to pick him up, and he's a giant of a man, 6'3". He could not physically fit in the back, so to make things easier, my friend would just sit in the back. Well, the other woman, known as Karen, was a big woman, not tall, but big. So on the way home, literally the first time, she starts getting in the front. I explained to her that she has to sit in the back. We get to my husband's job site, and I park and text him. Meanwhile, she jumps out of the car and gets into the front. I tell her to go back, but she straight up says no, because the seatbelt in the back is too tight, it hurts her chest. I tell her it's too bad, she can get out if she doesn't like it. Well, she gets out and goes to the back seat. My husband gets there and climbs in, and I start the car. And then the seatbelt warning light went on and beeps. She has the seatbelt off. I say to her that she needs to put the belt on. I'm mad with her no, I can't, it's easier if she's in the front. I say, you are in the back and we are not going anywhere until the belt is on. She crossed her arms like a child and says, I guess we're not going anywhere. I tell her if she doesn't put the belt on, she can get out and walk home. With a nice bit of snark, she says, well, you better call me a taxi. I got angry, and so I complied and called her a taxi. She puts her belt back on, but I told her that it's too late. Get out, you have a taxi coming. You can get out of my car now, or the police will be happy to remove you. She gets out and her jaw almost hits the road as I drove away. I never let anyone from work in my car again, only my friend. The next story is called Follow the Rules to the Letter. Living in Norway, especially back in the day, the winters are long, cold and of course filled with snow. This means that most schools and other clubs and activities that deal with kids and teens have very strict rules about what one is allowed to do or not to do when it comes to said snow. Especially when it comes to snowboards, those rules tend to be very strict. Since there are a lot of snow and temperature changes, there is always a lot of gravel and such used to fight the buildup of ice. This can potentially make the snowballs quite dangerous projectiles, so the rules make sense, to some extent at least. My dad had become intimately familiar with those rules, as he had been caught red-handed throwing snowballs on several occasions. This had caused him to receive an ultimatum. No more breaking the rules, or you will be suspended. To make sure that he knew what the rules were, he was told to study them carefully. One summer, mid-June, there's a massive hailstorm, so big in fact that by the time it's over, the landscape looked like it's winter, with piles of sloppy, icy snow everywhere. Going outside, the adults made sure to remind the kids about the snow rules. They made a point to stop my father at the door. You know the rules, we will keep an eye on you and expect you to follow them to the letter. Perfect invitation for some malicious compliance. You see, the rules were very specific. They specifically stated what you were and weren't allowed to do with snow in the winter. Every single rule started with, in the winter you are not allowed to. As my father had been forced to study the rules extensively, he knew perfectly well what the rules stated. He went outside, gathering up a piece of snow, and hurled it at one of his friends. This, of course, sparked a massive snowball fight, after which he was led up to the principal's office. The principal said, I assume you know why you are here? Not really, no. I don't see how I did anything wrong. I thought we made things very clear when it comes to what would happen if you break the rules one more time. He pulls out the book of rules and flips it to the pages about snowballs. The principal said, mind reading to me this rule, pointing to the rule about snowballs. During the winter, you are not allowed to throw snowballs. A whole bunch of text specifying what you were not allowed to throw at and where you were not allowed to throw, etc. So now that you've had a refresher, what do you have to say for yourself? And the father simply asked, what time of the year is it? The principal was speechless. My father got off without any further argument, even getting a commendation from his teacher about his clever way to think outside of the box. The rules were changed to be a lot less specific about the time of year a few weeks later, though it wasn't very likely to ever happen again. Hairstorms during the summer are a very rare occurrence in this part of the country at least. The last story is called Have Fun at Your New Job. My dad was a dentist for just over 40 years in a small tight-knit neighborhood tucked in a big city. He's no saint, but over the years he built up a reputation as a trusted professional who genuinely cared about doing good work. If someone couldn't pay, he would let them pay later. Most of his patients were first-generation immigrants, and he learned a good amount of their language to help communicate with them. Suffice to say, he was a pretty good dentist to have, that is, until he decided to retire. When 08-09 hit, my dad had been thinking about retiring for a while, but due to the market situation, he decided it would be better to wait it out a couple more years. Then in 2015, he decided enough was enough and he had to get out. The business was back up, but at his stage in life it became just a constant headache running a dental practice, constantly worrying about his staff and his office. He needed out. Glossing over a whole saga of him sorting through the process of actually selling his business, around early 2016 he was able to strike a deal with a dental corporation to buy out his practice. Dental corporations seem to be the new age of dentistry, replacing individually owned practices with multiple offices, referring patients within the corporate structure. A bit sneaky, but it's business. These corporations pull a lot more shady stuff, but the offer they made my dad was a standard: we are buying everything and paying in full, then you work for us for 3 months and you are done. Easy, right? Day 1 of my dad's 3-month finale and things aren't looking great. They place this new office manager called Sheila, who seems like she's never managed anything more than her iPhone. My dad, having managed his business for 40 plus years, starts asking if he's going to do X, Y or Z. And all he gets in response is, "You're the dentist, I'm the manager, don't you have teeth to look at?" Hoping that his office doesn't have to fall apart while he's still there, my dad asks his front desk staff to go through the regular orders and such, even if the manager forgets. This keeps them afloat for a while. Then, one by one, the staff are beginning to be retrained. Sheila brings in new booking software even she doesn't know how to use, and the front desk can't figure it out. Bookings are a mess, orders are getting missed, and within a couple of weeks 2 of them are let go for more competent replacements. My dad is not happy. The staff run perfect, but they were from the neighborhood and were also part of the reason why the patients came to his office. Soon after, they fired one of the hygienists for being late for a 3rd time, which leaves only one left. All these staffs are being replaced by people personally vetted by Sheila. Of course, they aren't familiar with the patients or the office, and things are going downhill fast. All the while, Sheila's barking orders at him, power tripping, thinking she's got him by the balls. They haven't found a replacement dentist yet, so they plan on bringing in a dentist from a nearby office to fill in the day after he leaves, so no proper transition. Without another dentist, the only person who knows all the little quirks in the office is my dad and the hygienist, to a degree. At this point, my dad doesn't even care about the office. There was no way his patients would be taken care of here, so better for them to get started on finding somewhere better. It was my dad's last day that Sheila finally slipped. There were no patients booked for the afternoon, so my dad was planning on leaving the office early and getting a head start on his retirement. Sheila had other plans. As one of her employees, she asked my dad to pick up some water for the operatory equipment, among other supplies that my dad usually had his assistants pick up. And my dad said this was a big screw you to his long career as a dentist, and in that moment something in his head clicked. He asked Sheila, "Just to clarify, you want me to get water, right?" Sheila was a bit confused, thinking he was being stupid, and replied, "Yes, water in a bottle? You've been doing this for how long and you've never bought water?" To which my dad replied, "Well, I'm just a dentist and you're the office manager." Not wanting to risk breaching his contract or the sale of his office, my dad slipped the hygienist the order list and had to buy a bunch of jugs of water with other supplies. She drove them back to the office for him to bring inside, and he started his beautiful journey of retirement. Little did Sheila know, operatory equipment is pretty delicate stuff. And for 40 years my dad has clearly instructed the staff to buy distilled water, as regular old water has a hefty amount of minerals, which seriously damages dental equipment. According to the hygienist, the entire office went to a screeching halt since all the equipment was malfunctioning. It took a week for Sheila and the new dentist to even figure out what was wrong. They had electricians come in before calling a service guy for the equipment, which makes no sense. They were already bleeding patients since none of them trusted the new management, and a week of cancellations was essentially a death sentence when it came to the regulars. The hygienist quit after a couple of weeks because of the way she was getting treated by the new staff, but it took a surprising 9 months for the office to close for good. I double-checked Sheila's LinkedIn profile and she got promoted to dental assistant at another one of the corporation's offices. As for my dad, he was pretty bummed to see the whole thing crash and burn, but he was happy to help Sheila land a new job. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button. It really helps in the algorithm. Have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.